what happened with the whole upheaval and uprising of the Black Lives Matter really affected us at home here.
Yes.
And the first thing that we went through actually were my daughters coming and asking me, what does that mean to us? We're not white. What does that mean, right? And it opened the whole topics of racism, and my daughters are like 9 and 12, right? So they are really young. But they were very curious. The 12-year-old felt more of anger. The 9-year-old felt more of fear, lots of fear from what happened. And we started conversations at home about that. What is racism? What does it mean? Why people are seeing each other with the skin color? Because kids don't see that. Kids are just kids together, right?
It's true.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Better Transitions. Today, we will be recording via Zoom. It's during COVID times, and we wanted to still be able to connect with our presenters to be able to bring you, our weekly interviews. So today we will be interviewing Samar. Samar is a psychotherapist. She's a professor at the Adler University, and she is the founder of the Well Institute. We also want to share with you that Samar is also a TEDx presenter. We will be sharing that link to her TED Talk in the link below. Welcome, Samar.
Just want to welcome Samar here with us. And I hope, you'll enjoy the show as we talk a bit about, what's happening in our climate today, with Black Lives Matter, with George Floyd, and sort of the response and how that has affected Samar and, her sharing with us sort of what we can do, as a Black community, as individual psychotherapists, clients to be able to, move through this transition that we're dealing with right now. Welcome, Samar.
Thank you so much, Tricia. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So I like to start off by just opening it up for you to sort of share a bit more about yourself and to tell us, do you have a transition story as it pertains to this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a therapist by profession, a mother to 2 girls. So we are a family of people of color. And yes, what happened with the whole upheaval and uprising of the Black Lives Matter really affected us at home here. Yes. And the first thing that we went through actually were my daughters coming and asking me, what does that mean to us? We're not white. What does that mean, right? And it opened the whole topics of racism, and my daughters are like 9 and 12, right? So they are really young. But they were very curious. The 12-year-old felt more of anger. The 9-year-old felt more of fear, lots of fear from what happened. And we started conversations at home about that. What is racism? What does it mean? Why people are seeing each other with the skin color? Because kids don't see that. Kids are just kids together, right?
It's true.
So that was very interesting to feel that at home. And it was a very intense couple of weeks. And even talking to friends, there was a lot of tears to see what happened and hear the last words of George before he died. On a therapeutic perspective with my clients, I saw a lot of conversations that opened in the workplace around that. And starting to seeing things that before people took for granted, like the boys club, the white boys club, all that stuff that people took for granted. They started seeing that and seeing how people actually choose to see the pain or just cover their eyes and choose to see like, oh, they're making a big deal out of it. And again, that's a coping mechanism for an ego that is very fragile. That can't handle reality with all its ugliness because it's ugly. That's the reality too, right? So yeah, that's how things opened in our home and what I see in my practice as well.
It sounds like it, as you said, opened conversations for you to be able to sort of share a bit more, like what is racism? Being able to talk to your daughters, almost like you're passing on, I guess, information from one generation to the next and sort of maybe helping them to understand, what this all means. And it sounds like something very similar within your practice, helping people to heal, from this, gain understanding, and again, moving forward as well within sort of this, again, time of grieving, for sure.
It is a very intense time of grieving. It really is. Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say it seems like as humanity right now, since the start of 2020, we are going through an initiation. And initiations are hard, right? No one likes to go into an initiation. Like, think of all our times when we transitioned, right? From childhood to adolescent, from adolescent to young adulthood, from young adulthood into partnership, into motherhood. Transitions are hard.
Yes.
So initiation as a collective is even harder. So that's how I'm seeing it right now. As humanity right now, we are ready for the next level, right? Remember when slavery was okay?
Yes.
Right now, we can't even fathom the idea. What do you mean that was okay one day, right? It's unacceptable globally now.
Yes.
So I think something similar, we're going through something very similar, that at the beginning it's really hard. There will be lives that are going to go, all that stuff. And then the transformation happened. And hopefully next generation will look back and say, wow, we couldn't believe that happened one day, you know?
Yes, that is definitely the hope. Like, I know a lot of people, are saying, some are hopeful, but others are not. People are like, we're seeing the same things, similar things that are happening now, were happening then, and a lot of people are feeling hopeless, right? So what would you say to those people who are feeling hopeless? How can they, get through this time?
So I would say hopelessness is one, and helplessness are two of the hardest human emotions, right? When we feel them, there is a sense of despair that might even take over. So the first thing I would say, take care of yourself. It sounds very cliche, right? Because we hear that a lot, but really take care of yourself. Like, feed your soul, whatever that means to you. Right? Is feeding your soul means being around your family, being around your friends, being around your loved ones. Don't fall into the idea of saving the world.
Yeah.
We're not saving anyone. And we both know, as two therapists, you can't save anyone.
No,
right?
You can only help yourself.
Exactly, right? You just show up for people, you just hold for them space, you show them the way, and it's up to them which direction to take.
Yes.
So if you felt you are falling into the trap of saving anyone, this is going to be a high contributor to the feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. So just be with that feeling, like really take care of you. So one thing I would say, like somatic, relating to the body, just literally hold your heart and hold your abdomen and just breathe, and breathe, and even rock, whatever you need to like soothe yourself, right? In that situation, because we all go through that. Sometimes hopelessness and helplessness can trigger shame, right?
Yes.
Now, when that happens, I love Brené Brown's stuff around shame. Shame cannot take the light. It needs dark and secrecy.
Yes.
Go talk to a friend. Go say that. I feel helpless and hopeless and I don't know what to do. Done. The shame's done.
Yes.
Right?
You're getting
There's
support to be able to not stay in that silence anymore and feel ashamed.
Absolutely. Find that voice, right? Like the voice right now is the most important thing. At the beginning, it's going to come raw and like maybe tough and harsh. Eventually, we're going to find our way and our language to find more compassion and communicating the same needs, but in a more compassionate way, right? So that we can be received and our rights can be achieved in a faster way. So I would say that, like, self-care, the body, holding the body and rocking, whatever, self-soothe this. If there's shame, talk to a friend, talk to a trusted one, bring the shame to the light, so it resolves.
Yes.
And trust that it's a cycle. It's going to move out of your.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that and that cycle is so important, to recognize when, you're getting into that space of, it could be heightened anxiety, as you said, heightened fear, like when if your child had, an anger. So, recognizing those emotions, holding them, right? And then being able to get into that place of self-soothing. It sounds like what you're trying to say there.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So, okay. So now we sort of talked a bit about, how it's affected you, some things that you can share, with others. I guess wanting to find out, okay, is there anything out there, in the literature empirically that, could sort of explain maybe, what's happening, with what's happening right now? Because right now, a lot of people are talking about defunding the police. A lot of riots, are happening right now. So sort of the reaction, like extreme reaction to what's going on. So maybe we can talk about the negative piece, and then maybe we can switch to the positive a little later. Yeah. What do you think about those reactions that are happening right now?
I think people have the right to feel their anger and communicate it. And that's an extremely important part of transformation, right? Yeah. And again, as therapists, we know that if a client came and they are feeling shame or guilt, literally we want to piss them off. We want to take them to the next level. Once they feel the anger, they are closer to courage and other things, right? So I think that's what's happening. The danger would be getting stuck in that anger. Right? And just fuel it and be better. Right? Which means that the emotional pain is becoming contaminated. It's not serving the person anymore. Right? So I would say just pay attention if that anger turned into bitterness, and you notice that your emotional pain is contaminated. You need help if that happened. Because there is no real transformation on a societal level or a communal level from an emotional contaminated space. Pure anger is amazing. Do it, but move through it to the next level, to the courage, to ask for what you want, to negotiate, like the next level, right? Yeah. And as much as what George went through, there's nothing, there's no excuse for what that police officer did. But again, if we held a wider perspective to the whole community, the white police officer also is a traumatized, terrified man.
So thinking about both perspectives of trauma.
Yeah, exactly. Right. If we removed the lens, which is very hard right now because we are in the middle of it, to remove the separatedness ideology, us versus them.
Yes.
It's two faces of the same trauma. The oppressed and the oppressor, the predator and the victim, right? Like it's the two faces. And I wonder if cutting the funds for the police will help, or asking that the funds is directed to a regular mental health work with the police officers. And it becomes mandatory. Right? I see great men from the police officers in my office as a therapist, and they do amazing work. And they come and they say, I want to feel this. I can't feel that anymore. I'm in a shock. I'm this, I'm that. And when they actually commit to their work, I see beautiful human beings. Right? So I don't ever see that the solution is taking away from something. It's relocating the resources into something that actually invests in the humanity of the people versus punishing them, right? So the punitive approach versus, you know what, maybe we don't need it for training for the body. We need training now for the soul, mental health now, people.
Yes. Right?
I think it's very hard.
A good point there. Yeah.
For
sure. That idea of, reallocating the funds rather than thinking about it as taking away funds from police. It's more reallocating the funds so that it can be used in an area that is lacking. Exactly. A lot of research now has been talking about sort of the lack of access to mental health resources in the US. And I think that we are sort of spoiled here in Canada, or even in the Vancouver area, in the sense that, mental health resources are accessible mostly, to a wider population here. I find that individuals are saying, even through my practice, that, it's difficult to access those resources in the US because they've, I guess, migrated here to Canada, and they've had, really traumatic experiences there, in the sense that there are barriers to them accessing help, especially within, impoverished neighborhoods where the access is low, right? So it's definitely challenging there. Yeah, so that idea of the reallocating is definitely something individuals have been talking about and championing for, the defund the police sort of situation.
Yes. And even like taking it to a bigger perspective, even since the COVID and the isolation and how much mental health problems are coming to the surface, what you see in your office too, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen what I'm seeing right now in my office with my clients before.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Like, I would say that my practice has blossomed just in the last 2 months. I've tripled clientele, and it's not a moment of celebration for me because I know, the reason that's happening is because of the climate that we're in at this point, and I'm happy to be a professional to help. But at the same time, it's these people are hurting.
Yes, they are totally right. And there's many articles now that they're saying the next pandemic is going to be mental health. Right. So we are really right now as humanity are pressured. So there's no distractions anymore.
Yeah.
Everything is in our face like that. You can't distract, right? The man that was a workaholic to run away from a marriage that isn't working, now he's self-isolating with his wife.
Oh, yes.
To figure that out, right?
Yes.
And our big issues of injustice and racism and sexism are also coming to the surface for the same reason, right? So just going through our cycles, getting the anger to remove the shame out of the way and thinking about the next level and move from a punitive perspective to a different level of consciousness. Now, what is the consciousness that include all of us as humanity? We can't live without each other. Person of color, Black person, white person, Asian, like we can't live without each other, period, really, right?
Yeah. Definitely. We need each other, right? So that idea of thinking of a collective, being able to live and exist together and help each other, and be able to fight against, these injustices and discrimination that's in the world. And I think, you started talking about that last aspect that I wanted to talk about, sort of, how do we move forward? What can we do to get to that next place? Where, we can reduce some of the trauma, we can reduce some of the pain and the hurt, and I think you touched on it there in the sense of, thinking of a global, wider community of people who are in this together to fight this, and to be able to get to a place where we can recognize the need for each other, right?
Yes. Yes, 110%. To be honest, I believe that the next step would be people gathering together as community, right? Call that group therapy for somebody to hold a space for the pain without judgment, to moderate the conversation. But that would be the next level, witnessing each other pain and transformation. Because there's something magical happens when you are seen in your pain without being judged. Right. And find other people's looks and empathetic looks of like, whoa, that's harsh. I'm so sorry. Right. And understanding that the global phenomenon right now is going to trigger our own personal traumas from our childhood. The moments of helplessness, the moments of hopelessness, whether that was massive abuse or was little things of emotional neglect, it will trigger that, whether we want it or not. Right. And then if you have access to your therapist, amazing, go and work through that. If you don't have access, talk to a friend, right? Group therapy is way more accessible, as you know, Tricia, than one-on-one, but there is more need of that right now, right? We need people to get together because the energy of people together make the transformation even more long-lasting and stronger.
Definitely. And, you talk about group therapy and, it may not be group therapy that I'm seeing now, but I'm seeing a lot of organizations sort of bringing people together to have these conversations. Some are more volatile than others, but I've been a part of both. Ones where it's gotten so emotionally charged, the sense that people are speaking what they have to say, others are shutting them down, but at least the conversation's happening. And then at the other end where people are, being able to share and others are listening, like you're talking about, so that witnessing piece, and being able to be there empathetically, right, for them. And also, being able to say, okay, I recognize my part, in this, and I want to change, like, help me, how can I do this? So having those transformative conversations too, where individuals are recognizing, the roles that they're playing as well within it, and you're seeing the transformation in front of you.
That's amazing. Yes. And I think that's an amazing start, right? But also me and you know that this conversation can be re-traumatizing if there's no professional to actually monitor the nervous systems of people, right? So I am 110% biased to our profession. That especially trauma-trained therapists, not trauma-informed even, trauma-trained, because you're trauma-trained, I'm trauma-trained. We know how to look for things, non-verbals, right? People don't need to talk much. It's an eye look. It's a shutdown in the facial expressions that tells me that, whoa, that person is checked out. Now, anything we're saying gonna trigger them. Take them out, have a conversation with another co-facilitator. So I am biased that these conversations need to be held by trauma-trained therapists so that people will not be re-traumatized and they are taking actually a longer time in healing. Because re-traumatization is like a broken bone and you keep hitting on it, right? Now it's going to take longer to heal versus like, oh, somebody hit the bone that is broken. Let me take you outside, talk about what happened and take care of it before bringing you back to that zone.
It's a very controlled space, as you said. A way to support them even more within that space. I completely agree with you in the sense that counseling and psychotherapy is the best way to unpack deep traumatic things, and it has been traumatic for a lot of people. So yes, if you are out there YouTube fans, are a person who has had a lot of traumatic triggering at this point in time, please, contact a therapist. And we'll be leaving Samar's contact information below, so you can, access her. You can access me if you're in the Vancouver area. And if not, we can even put a link there for someone. You can look up a therapist in your area as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Samar, for sharing, with us, and highlighting some of those things that are happening within our world, and sort of giving us tips on how we can, I guess, prepare ourselves and move into these conversations.
Thank you, Tricia. What about you? How did this whole thing, this movement, affected you in your practice? Man, and again, we're two different people, right? I'm a person of color. The effect is very different, as like you are in the midst of the fire yourself, right?
Yes, definitely. As a person of color, I would say that I was affected a little differently. And I say that to say, I am of Jamaican descent. Okay. So, my forefathers were slaves, and I sort of grew up within that, I guess, sphere of knowing that. I'm also mixed. So I have European descent as well. So my forefathers were also slave owners. Right. And I'm also of East Indian descent. So, so I have
that's a very interesting mix.
Yeah. So I have all of those, things going on. So for me, I looked at it as a sense of, okay, this is happening. But is it happening to me and my people? That's the first thing that came to me. I'll be honest. That was my reaction to it. And I said, is this an African American issue? Right. The first thing for me is I tend to externalize outside of me, so I don't take it on. But then I had to check myself and say, you know what? We are all Black people. If our brother is going through something, it's for me to be able to look at that and say, okay, how can I help? Right? Have I contributed to that? And recognizing maybe the differences, right, that are between our people. So yes, I'm from the Caribbean. We fought for our freedom, right? So we don't have that sense of necessarily helplessness or hopelessness, because we're a fighting people, right? We fought for our freedom and we got it. We won, right? Sure. So, the African American experience, from what I've read so far, and I had to dig, to find this information, they weren't able to fight for that. They were definitely downtrodden. And even after they were so-called free, they were beaten continuously, in the sense of they tried to rebuild and that was torn down. And, and we can see with media, the constant, beating down of their humanity. Just that experience. It's like a continuous experience for them. And I don't have that experience, right?
Systematic oppression, right?
Exactly. The
breaking all the time, squishing.
Exactly.
Keep going until it's internalized. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't have that experience. So it was difficult for me to understand the anger. It was difficult for me to understand the frustration, because I was definitely of the party that was like, why can't you move forward? Why can't they move forward? And I had to definitely look and say, okay, what is really happening here? Educate myself, and recognize, okay, these are the similarities, these are the differences, and be a champion for them. Be able to open those conversations and look within myself for my own biases, and recognize, okay, I might have perpetuated this idea of needing to get over things. Right? Yeah. And once I checked that, then I was able to be like, okay, what can I do? How can I help this movement of the discrimination, the prejudice and such, and then be like, okay, open conversations, what we're doing right now, and be able to even, as you said, do some self-care for myself, because I was also reminded of times when I was, treated unfairly or discriminated against. And, it did bring up memories for me as well. Right. And I had to deal with those. I had to deal with those. I had days when I was crying in my bed, right? Frustrated, talking to my husband, and like, why is this continuing to happen? And, I feel like here in Canada, it's more of a covert,
Yes, it's not in your face because it's in the States. Yes. And I think that will take us to an important point of like noticing how do you cope with the stress, fight, flight, freeze, or frown.
Yes.
What do you do, right? Like for you sit down and cry. I get mad. Yes. Like I'm like, what's happening? Why am I doing this? It's unreasonable, right?
Yes.
And I remember that, that's my coping. I fight. That's what I know. When I'm under that level of stress or trauma, my first response is fighting until I'm like, okay, there's something wrong. I don't even know what it is. And sitting with myself to access the tears that you accessed, right? Yeah. So even that knowledge will give people power to understand that which one of you do you need to run right now and talk about another topic and act as if nothing is happening.
Exactly.
And give yourself that break. Or do you need to fight and advocate and move forward? Or do you need to freeze, like do nothing? It's okay too.
Yeah.
So let's both of us give people permissions today to cope.
Yes, definitely.
Right? There's no guilt in any way of coping. Yes, there's no guilt. Please cope in whatever way you need to cope. Right? And thrown people pleasing.
Yes.
You need to please people to feel better. Whatever you need right now. It's a survival space, right? So the permission is so important. Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, that's definitely where I found myself. And, I think, as you said, I had to go through that to be able to, become triumphant in the end in saying, okay, this is how I feel. Now what can I do? Because I'm also that person. I feel my feelings. And then I'm like, okay, I can't stay in it. I need to figure out, okay, what am I going to do then? Right. So after you've been able to feel the feelings and cope in a sense, then if you're within that space where you're feeling strong enough, then you can identify, okay, how can I join this movement? What can I do? Right. And I know I'm not a person to go out there with a plaque for sure. I'm definitely the behind the scenes person. So, find your voice, find what you can do out there to be a part of this movement, whether it's posting something on Facebook, whether it's having conversations with people one-on-one, you're also doing the work, right?
Totally agree. But look at you, Tricia, you are actually taking a flag and like doing a YouTube channel and reaching out to us in Vancouver. Hey, I have a YouTube channel. Do you want to come and have a conversation online? That's a big deal. That's a leader movement. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So Samar, how can people find you? Because as you said, you're holding space for people, whether that's through group therapy or that's one-on-one therapy, how can people find you? How can they contact you if they need, to access?
So my website is www.wellinstitute.com. And they can always email me. That we have a chat box there for ease. Or people can just email me samar@wellinstitute.com. And there will be group therapies actually starting in September. So there is a preparation right now happening for it. Yes. And then it's going to be trauma-trained therapists holding that space for people so we can all transform together.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
I'm sure you'll give me that information. I'll put it down in the description.
Absolutely. So, that too.
You can access it there. Wonderful. Well, it was so great to talk with you, Samar.
Thank you, Tricia. Same. Thank you for inviting me for this conversation, really. And truly, thanks for the leadership. Admire it so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.